Good morning, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to us drone on and on about financial solutions. And actually, as a CPA and former accountant, I have to say I love all things geeky and software. So I don't have as great a hair as Jeremy does, but we're just trying to keep it light here this morning. So I want to talk to you this morning about Sage Intacct. I'm fresh off a conference where I learned a lot of new things about the product, and it's probably something you haven't heard a lot about. So I want to take a little bit of time before we dive into it, just to give you a little bit of background on the solution. I know everybody's really heard of Microsoft and its offerings, but we have a nice little solution, Sage Intacct, that works very, very well in a lot of markets. So I'm going to move to my next slide. I'm trying to move to my next slide. Hang on just a second. There we go. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit today, and this is just in my financial role, having been a CFO and as a CPA and talking to a lot of people who I'm sure are accountants as well, is the evolving role of the CFO and how it's highlighted a need for a lot of the things that you're going to see today. All three of our solutions have comprehensive dashboards with KPI data, so key performance indicators. All of them have the ability to look at real-time financial reports, and then all of them use these workflows and workflow through role-based workflows to stay compliant. And we know how important that is. And if we look at the slide or the picture to the right, you're going to see that what we're seeing is a CFO role, and a lot of the even accounting roles are switching from just doing accounting and data entry to actually now becoming decision makers. And so as decision makers and as people who are making decisions for our company, we need to know that we have data that we can count on and that it's there, it's readily available, and it's easy to understand. So I'm having trouble with my clicking here. I'm going to just move to the next slide a little bit. And I'm actually going to start with a really short story about how I kind of got into Sage Intacct. And so as you're looking at this slide, it's talking about how, we think of ERP systems and accounting systems as, really just historical, but they have evolved so much. And they're now becoming systems where we need to be able to look at profitability, cash flow. We have to be in compliance. There's so many compliance around a lot of what we're doing. We have to be able to make decisions on the fly. And so just a little quick story about how I got into Sage Intacct a couple years back or a few years back. Now, my brother-in-law who runs a not-for-profit in New York City was at my house, and knowing how I love all things accounting, he was working on his tablet and he said, hey, have you seen this product? And what was so interesting to me about that is you have to understand my brother-in-law is definitely not an accountant. He is actually he's a theologian. He's his doctorate in theology. And short story long, they were between CFOs. And he needed to be able to make decisions about what they were going to be able to do, trips and travel they were going to be able to take, initiatives they were going to be able to do. And he was sitting looking at a system on his tablet, and he was literally clicking through financial statements and dashboards and being able to get on the phone and make decisions. And he was on vacation. And that's what started my real journey into looking at an accounting system which really acts like a decision-making system as opposed to just an accounting or an ERP system. So I'm going to take you down to the next slide. I'm going to give you a little bit of background because you may not be as familiar, and then we're going to go right into a demo, and we're going to kind of look at what it looks and feels like. First of all, like the other systems we're showing, it is a multi-entity, multi-currency type product. It is cloud-based. There's continuous consolidations because you can slide in and out of your entities, your legal entities. They're streamlined. You're able to actually make decisions and on the fly be able to look at the data. Sage Intacct is also known as the best in class for its particular market. And just taking a slide down, I'm just going to, if you want these slides later, we will always have those available for you so that you can look and see. But this is the solution map of what it does. When you look at it, you may think of a smaller system, but it really is, it fits very comfortably in that small to mid-sized market and is expanding even more into international and a little bit larger. But it is primarily around distribution and financial. Just going to take one. Some of its awards that it's won, it is, and it just probably means nothing outside of the accounting world, but it is the only provider that has been preferred and endorsed by the AICPA, which is the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, which is unusual. They are not apt to do that. I just came back from a conference where they did have a member of the AICPA as well as CPA.com doing presentations on how they're staying in touch with Sage Intacct to make sure that it is staying in compliance. And again, just kind of highlighting that again, that it is basically when things come out from the AICPA and FASB and the different governing boards, Sage Intacct gets right on it to make sure that it stays in compliance, which is a really big deal when, especially if you're in contracts or revenue recognition, things like that, you know, trying to make sure that you're in compliance and not having to make changes to the system or work around. And then one last award that it has won for the third year in a row, it has received the highest score in core financials for the lower to mid-sized market by Gartner. Sorry there, I guess I just skipped it. So that is a very prestigious award. If you look and see what they're up against, they have done very well. So let's move down, and I'm going to kind of go right into the area of the demo and show you some things. Obviously, I can't get to everything in the time we have allotted, but I want to make sure that making the use of your time just kind of give you a little bit of a look and feel. So I kind of just geeking out here did an acronym, and that was making decisions that are real good decisions, and real, R-E-A-L. The first one is R, obviously, and so I chose relevant. How is Sage Intacct relevant? And I'm just going to actually take you over to I have 3 of my demo environments up, but one of the things I was going to show you is relevancy has to do with how accurate and up-to-date is that data. So I am a CFO or I'm an accountant and I'm sitting in a meeting and somebody sends me something about we need to pay something. I want to know what's my cash on hand. I don't have time to wait for reports. I don't have time to stop and call somebody. I want to be able to pick up my tablet, my laptop, and I want to know what's going on with our cash. And so in order for the data to mean something to me, it has to be relevant. And so just like the other products you'll see, accounting has evolved from a month-end close type system to what we like to call the continuous close, meaning that as transactions are committed in inventory, as they're committed in purchasing, as they're committed in sales, and they actually are being realized either as an invoice or a true sale, those are going directly now to the ledger. So that any one point in time, I'm showing you a kind of a large dashboard here, and I know it's hard to see. I'm on one of my many dashboards here. I'm actually on one called the controller. And if you scroll down, you're going to see not only do I have what we refer to as these key performance or KPIs or key performance indicators where I can look and see what my G&A expenses are to the prior year, or I can look at what my current payroll are, or I can look at my cash on hand. And I need to be able to know that when I look at my G&A expenses or my cash on hand, that includes all the data. And so as the system now becomes easier and easier to use, I know, for instance, I can look at that, and if that number doesn't look right, I can actually drill down and see whether yesterday or today's deposits have been put in. As I scroll down even more, you can see that I'm looking at different segments of the organization. I'm not just looking at financials. I'm actually looking at revenue trends. I'm actually looking at AR balances by customer. And not to be overwhelming, but you can see that on just one dashboard alone, I'm actually looking at my business and it's relevant and it's up to date. So somebody goes in and posts this month's payroll, that number is going to change immediately. So it is relevant because it is real. I'm sitting in a meeting. I know that data is up to date. I am not waiting for somebody to close the books. So let's go back into the next slide. And E, so again, using my silly acronym of REAL. The next one is E for, and I use it for encompassing. In the old days when you were the controller or whatever, you were typically maybe not always being able to see all the details for sales or for customers or for vendors. You were relying on somebody else to give it to you. But when in today's market, with the software we have, I don't need that anymore. I can sit here and look through the data, and like I said, I showed you before, I can scroll down and start looking at my balances by customer. I can go down and see my bills analysis by department. I can look at my aging. I can take any operational data that's out there, any data that's in there, and I can easily, and I say very easily, create myself new items for my dashboard. In addition, and one of the things I just wanted to point out that makes Sage Intacct such a great out-of-the-box solution is it comes preloaded with so many dashboards. So if you're looking here, I'm just pulling up, this is just a demo environment that I provisioned just a couple of weeks ago. And if you look at all of these dashboards, these are not dashboards that I created. These were dashboards that came out of the box. It's already accessing data. So as you can see, the minute that you go in and you enter your legacy data or you import it, these are already being populated. So right again, as soon as you have that data, you're working. So it's encompassing. I'm looking at everything from current ratio. So that's the other thing. I can be looking at any of the important ratios. I can be looking at my ROI, my ROE. At the same time, I'm looking at my AR, my cash on hand. And to even illustrate that farther, even more, I can drill down even. So imagine this works very well with a tablet. I'm sitting here with my tablet and I'm in a meeting and I want to know what's going on with my G&A expenses. And remember, you know, there's just not one number is going to give you everything you need. You're going to need more than one number. So I'm going to drill down into my travel a little bit. And I'm going to take a look at the travel here. And as I look at these travel expenses, you can see all of these adding up. A couple things to note is that you will see it as multi-currency, so it's just pulling it in the currency format. But I'm drilling right down into the transactions, and so I'm able to see, has everybody put the data in? You know, I'm sitting in a meeting, have the travel expenses from Amex been put in? Have they been scanned in or entered? So even here, I can drill down one more level, and I'm now looking at another report, and I'm actually looking at a journal entry. So with a couple of clicks, here I am down in the journal entry, and I can see that this was the payroll. It was a payroll entry that was either imported or came from my payroll module, either way. And I'm looking at it right here in real time. And another thing I did want to point out while we're in here is the whole process of dimensioning. And dimensioning is the ability to tag sub-ledger transactions so they show up in the general ledger. So you see now that even at this general ledger level, I have the ability to tag any of these entries to a contract or a project. I can allocate them out, department, location. So it enables me just with a couple of clicks or swipes if you have a tablet to go from this screen to being able to drill down in it. And again, like I said, I'm showing you quite a bit. And I wanted to point out again, all of these come out of the box, just like the financials. So let's moving on just a little bit, and hopefully I'm not going too fast. I tend to talk fast. I'm going to go to the next step of my acronym, and that's the A for analytical. So all the data in the world, if it is up to date, if it is relevant, if it's all encompassing, does me no good if I have to call somebody and ask what this number means. And so the power for me as a decision maker is the ability to make decisions by drilling down. So I'm going to actually switch over to another one of our environments here. And I am logged in as Joanna Drake, who is the controller in this case. And I'm going to look at a level where and I want to analyze. And one of the things that I've always loved about Sage Intacct is its ability to have all these snapshots at a glance. So as I'm looking here at the controller dashboard, I'm going to just take you up and show you something. So right here, you can see that this is an environment where I have a top level and 4 locations. So the other entity I showed you was a it was an international company. But right here and now, if I want to do analysis as a point in time or for a department, I can do that. So for instance, I'm at the top level. If I want to now, I can slide down in to look at my Texas location, and it'll take just a minute, and you'll notice that it went ahead and drilled down. And now what happened is I'm down in my Texas location, the exact same dashboard I just had a minute ago, but now I'm looking at Texas-only data. So again, from here, I'm able to look at, oh, my sales. Okay, so I'm in my Texas environment, and now I have this ability to drill right down into it. Another one of my favorite features of all time is the ability to slice by date. How many times do we get the question, well, I know what those are the numbers now, but what were they 3 months ago or a year ago? And typically our answers as accountants are to go run reports, right? Well, what about if you had a world where you didn't have to do that? What if you could just change the as of date? So I went back to Joanna Drake, who I'm in as a controller, and I'm using data because I have data in there for 2013. And let's just say I wanted to change this, for example, to 2015. And I now want to look at data for March, and I want to look at data for the end of March. And so what I've done is I'm asking for a different snapshot, all the same data. If I scroll down, I still have a financial statement, I still have a balance sheet, I still have my intercompanies, I still have revenue. But now when I click on the apply button, what I have is a completely different snapshot now based on time. So again, not only do you have the ability to slide in and out of those entities, no more eliminations, nor more consolidations, I have the ability to get my data in a snapshot by month. And that is, to me, fantastic, especially as an accountant who spent a lot of time running reports to get pictures of time. What did it look like then? So this is truly one of my favorite features of Sage Intacct, is that ability to create the dashboard or to use one of the out of the boxes and then sit there and slice and dice it. So not only can I do that, but let's say I have some other, and these are all you can customize. You get up to 3 filters. You can see here on the filter that I also have departments. So now maybe I want data as of 3/31/2015, but I want to look at it for the sales department. So I go ahead and choose sales. I go ahead and apply my filter. And as I apply this filter, you're going to see that I have a whole new sales set of numbers. So not only do I have numbers that are as of a date, I now have numbers that are as of a particular department. So what does that mean as you look at this? It means that the days of sitting and waiting for reports to run are over. You don't have to sit and wait for reports to run. If I take you over to the original environment that we were in, this is actually a far more fleshed out demo company. This one actually is international, so you can see there's not a whole lot of data in these, but if I were to switch over to the UK, you'd see that instantly we'd be looking at the amounts in pounds. And so not only can I slide in and out, I can translate into the currency I want. I have the ability to slice the data by date. I have the ability to slice by dimension. And I have the ability to do analysis. And that's just really the drill down. And it's just coming from the world where I've spent a lot of my career either writing reports or running reports, that is really amazing. So that ability to, and of course all of these can be printed, but the other ability you have is to give your decision makers that view-only access where they can actually see the data, they can swipe through it for themselves, and they can know that it's up to date. And so therefore it gives you those ability to make, instead of always chasing history, you're now moving ahead and actually looking ahead and making decisions for yourself. So let me get toward the end of my slide here. I'm going to go one more. So I'll pop back over to my PowerPoint and of course finish off my little acronym here. and that's logical. So what is logical data? Logical data is in the format that people are used to seeing. So therefore, as an accountant, as a decision maker, as a CFO, controller, lead accountant, whatever I am, I'm used to seeing a full financial package. And again, one of the other features that I have always loved about Sage Intacct is the ability to have a full out-of-the-box set of financial statements. I'm showing you just a view of what they are, but I can actually just take you into the financial reports and show you how many reports. These are all out of the box. These actually came when I provisioned this company. When you provision, you get so many, and as you can see right here, I have 4 pages of ready to go financial reports. These are the standard balance sheet statements of, these also work for not-for-profit. There's a whole not-for-profit segment that has all the reports that you need. It has cash flow. You're not spending your time trying to write reports. The reports are there. You may have to do a little work on your chart of accounts to make sure you have the right categories, but when you do, out of the box, you have the data. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my demo company. Here, I'm going to just clear the filter so we can go down and see these. And then I'm going to kind of head into my last point. How am I doing on time, Brad?
You're doing good. You got about 5 minutes.
Okay, good. That's just about perfect. Okay, just wanted to make sure I was hitting this right. So the last thing I was going to show was one of the things that we look at for logic also is how can we use business logic to make sure that the employees and the people that are entering our data have the proper access. So one of the things I'm going to show you right now just a little bit is an example of how the workflow works. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to a different date because I want to actually see, whoops, sorry about that. I want to actually see a little bit different data here, and I'm going to use March 31st. I'm going to go ahead and apply again because I know I have a bunch of sample data out here. So this is just going to be a little narrative of how this works for a different employee. So based on the security and the roles and using workflow, I can drive my business this way. So again, I may be a decision maker and I may be at a conference or I may be in a meeting, not at my desk, and I may need to do some approvals. I may have some purchase requisitions coming in. So here I'm going to show you an example. This is Joanna Drake, and she is the controller. So she is responsible for approving the requisitions, and this is the rule that's set up for her employee, Drew Jackson. So if we go over, I'm now logged in as Drew Jackson. So Drew Jackson doesn't have the access that the controller has. If we look at him even from an entity level, he only has access to 2 of the locations because that's all he's working in. And then if you were to look at even his menu compared to everyone else, one of the things is I did this just so you could see it. If for instance, for example, if I did not take away his permission to the dashboard, you'll see that just because of his role, even if he were able to access a financial dashboard, it's not going to give him the data. So if we just look down at what he has available to him, you'll see that he has some things he can view, but he can't add any. There's not a little plus sign next to his compared to his boss. He does have the ability, however, to enter in his expenses, and he has the ability to enter purchase requisitions. So right now, logged in as him, I went ahead and prepared some purchase requisitions that he went ahead and did. Let's just take a quick look at them. So Drew Jackson went in and he entered in a purchase requisition and he submitted it to his boss, Joanna Drake, for approval. So if we just go back to his purchase requisitions, we'll see that he now cannot edit them because he submitted them, and he can't convert them to anything. So there's nothing he can do. There's an old one out here that maybe before workflow is turned on, he can convert. So now we're going to walk over and we're going to show Joanna Drake. So she comes in and she can either have an approval dashboard, or she can just do her approvals online. So if she goes over to purchasing, the first thing you're going to see is based on her role, she has access to enter purchase recs and purchase orders and vendors, and she also has the ability to approve transactions. So she may have received an email, which would allow her to approve it there, or she may just be sitting in a meeting and go in. She can take a look at a purchase requisition that Drew has entered, and she can take a look at it. She can approve or decline. She can click on approve, and she can say, can you expedite this? And I didn't spell it right. Of course, thank you for spell check. And she can go ahead and approve it. So now if we go back and look at Drew, and I do a refresh on this screen, and it takes just a second, you'll see now that his gone from submitted to pending, and he can now convert this to a purchase order and move on. So that's sort of the end of my little spiel. Take a look at the workflow, and that was a very, very high level. If you have any questions or you want to see more, please feel free to contact us. We are always willing to sit down with you and give you more in-depth.